All right, let's jump right into this explainer. We all love to think of ourselves as these completely rational beings, right? Making logical choices based purely on the facts right in front of us. But, well, what if I told you there's actually this hidden, almost mechanical tape playing inside your head, one that practically forces you to act in ways you might not even realize? Today, we're unpacking a really profound concept from Robert Cialdini's classic research on persuasion, the principle of commitment and consistency.
Take a look at the question on this slide, because the answer reveals a fascinating and honestly kind of innate human drive that marketers weaponize against us literally every single day. Researchers actually found that 30 seconds before putting down their money, racetrack bettors are super tentative and uncertain. But 30 seconds after they hand over the cash, boom, they are significantly more optimistic and self-assured. And remember, absolutely nothing about the horse's actual chances shifted. It's the exact same horse, exact same track. So what exactly happened here?
To make sense of this psychology, we're going to follow this roadmap. We'll hit on the drive for consistency, triggering the trap, the 4 pillars of commitment, the foot in the door technique, the low ball tactic, and finally, how to defend yourself by trusting your gut.
Okay, starting off with Section 1, the drive for consistency.
This right here, this obsessive desire to be consistent, completely explains our racetrack bettors. Once they buy the ticket, they simply convince themselves they made the right choice just to align their beliefs with their actions. You see, making that final decision puts them under this immense personal and social pressure to behave consistently with that commitment. They justify the choice so they can sleep at night, basically. And it makes sense, right? In our culture, being consistent is a highly valued trait. We associate it with logic, stability, and honesty.
But we really fall into this habit because, let's be real, thinking is hard work. As you can see here, blind consistency acts as a mental shortcut. It lets us cruise on an effortless autopilot. You and I live in an incredibly complicated world, so once we make up our minds about something, stubborn consistency gives us this amazing luxury. We just don't have to sift through a blizzard of information anymore. We don't have to agonizingly weigh pros and cons. We just hit play on our consistency tape and do whatever lines up with our past choice. Plus, sometimes it literally gives us a safe place to hide from harsh truths we'd just rather not face.
Moving on to Section 2, triggering the trap. So how exactly does this autopilot get turned on?
If consistency is the tape, commitment is the play button. That's the crucial takeaway. A commitment is the exact catalyst that traps us into later compliance. If someone can just get you to take a stand or go on record about something, they've successfully set the stage for you to blindly follow through later just to be consistent. Let me show you how incredibly subtly this can be done. I bet you've heard charity solicitors use this exact polite little opening on the phone. Hello, how are you feeling this evening? Now, they aren't just being friendly. They are specifically maneuvering you into publicly stating that all is well in your life. They want you to say the standard, "I'm doing fine, thanks," because once you've publicly gone on record saying that you're doing great, it becomes incredibly awkward for you to suddenly act stingy when they ask you to donate to people who are definitely not doing fine.
A researcher named Daniel Howard actually tested this in Dallas. And the results? By just getting people to make that tiny conversational commitment before asking them to buy cookies for hunger relief, compliance absolutely skyrocketed to 33%. Compare that to just 15% when they skipped the greeting. People who casually said they were fine got trapped by their own words. To stay consistent with their own stated good fortune, they bought the cookies.
All right, Section 3, the 4 pillars of commitment. Because not all commitments actually stick.
For a commitment to genuinely alter your self-image and stick permanently, it generally needs to check these 4 mental boxes. It needs to be active, public, effortful, think of grueling college fraternity initiations, and most crucially, it has to be an inner choice, meaning you did it without a heavy outside threat or some massive financial reward. When all these pillars are in place, we accept inner responsibility. We stop saying, "I was forced to do this," and we start believing, "I did this because this is just who I am."
This is a brilliant example of the active pillar in the real world. The Amway Corporation discovered that when they have the customer physically write out the sales agreement themselves, canceled contracts plummet. People live up to what they've physically written down. From the inside, your brain feels pressure to match your self-image with your physical action. And from the outside, there's a huge tendency to adjust your image to match how others will perceive you based on that document.
And here's the public pillar in action. Weight loss clinics do this all the time to leverage our deep-seated fear of looking flaky. A quiet, private decision? Yeah, that's usually way too weak to survive a late-night craving for donuts. But when you tell everyone you know about your goal, our cultural drive to look stable, rational, and consistent kicks into high gear. Whenever we take a visible stand, we will stubbornly maintain it just for appearance's sake.
Let's move to Section 4, the foot in the door technique. Let's see how professionals weaponize this against us.
Look at this staggering contrast on this slide. It really shows how easily we can be manipulated. Psychologists went door to door asking people to put up this massive, ugly, drive carefully billboard that completely blocked the view of their houses. A standard request? Only 17% said yes. But an astonishing 76% of a second group agreed to ruin their front lawns. Why? Because 2 weeks earlier, they had been tricked into signing a tiny, completely trivial petition about keeping California beautiful.
As the researchers noted here, signing that tiny petition actually shifted their internal self-image. They started seeing themselves as public-spirited citizens. So when the massive billboard request came around, they naturally complied just to remain consistent with that brand new identity. That is the scary part of this whole concept. A harmless, trivial little commitment can make you willing to do huge, barely related favors later on. They aren't just changing your behavior, they are literally manipulating your identity.
Section 5, the lowball tactic. This is an even more insidious application of these principles.
Car salesmen are famous for the lowball tactic. Basically, they let a commitment grow its own legs. They'll offer you an amazing price, say $400 below the competition. You decide to buy it, and while you wait for the paperwork, you start calling the car yours. You notice the seats are super comfortable, the color is perfect, it handles beautifully. You build up a bunch of new reasons to justify buying it. Then, oh no, an error is discovered. The initial $400 discount gets removed, but the crazy thing is, the deal doesn't collapse. By the time they pull that initial advantage, you've already sold yourself on 5 other reasons you have to have the car.
But interestingly, this lowball effect can also be used for good. Check out this energy study. Researchers promised homeowners newspaper publicity if they conserved energy. The residents built all these new habits and started seeing themselves as conservationists. But then, the researchers sent a letter saying, sorry, the newspaper publicity is canceled. You'd think they'd stop saving energy, right? Wrong. Stripped of the external reward, their energy savings actually increased to a stunning 41.6%. Kicking away the original reason only made them push harder to justify their new internal self-image.
And our final section, number 6, trusting your gut.
Okay, so since this automatic consistency thing is everywhere, how do we actually defend ourselves? Well, your body actually gives you 2 distinct warning alarms when someone is using this against you. The first is that literal pit in your stomach. You know the feeling, when you realize you've been cornered into saying yes to something you really don't want to do, just so you don't look foolishly inconsistent. But the second signal is even deeper. It's your heart of hearts.
To cut through the mind games, you have to ask yourself this exact question on the screen. Knowing what I now know, if I could go back in time, would I make the same choice? And the secret here is to trust the very first flash of feeling you get in response. Psychology shows us that we actually experience a raw feeling about something a split second before our intellect has time to engage and rationalize it. That initial pure flash, that's your true self telling you if you genuinely want to do this or if you're just being a slave to foolish consistency.
I want to leave you with this provocative final thought, which perfectly sets up our next explainer where we'll unravel another highly exploitable trap: social proof. Why does a terrible, obvious, canned laugh track on a sitcom literally force us to chuckle along even when we consciously know it's totally fake? Well, as we've seen today, we rely heavily on mental shortcuts. And as we're going to see next time, looking at what other people are doing might just be the most dangerous shortcut of all. Thanks for watching, and keep your guard up out there.